Your home for everything home. Download the app today.
Happening now, breaking news. The Pentagon says U.S. troops are now heading into harm's way in Afghanistan as the country moves dangerously closer to a complete takeover by the Taliban. We'll talk with the Pentagon spokesman, Admiral John Kirby. Also tonight, CDC advisors recommend the third COVID vaccine dose for some with compromised immune systems, endorsing the FDA's decision. How soon will others be eligible for booster shots? And Homeland Security just issued a new terrorism warning, citing the potential for attacks surrounding the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. Wolf Blitzer is off today. I'm Jim Acosta, and you're in The Situation.
This is CNN Breaking News.
And we're following breaking news. U.S. troops right now heading to Afghanistan as the Pentagon expresses deep concern over the Taliban's rapid takeover of more territory in key cities. In moments, I'll speak to Pentagon spokesman John Kirby, but first, CNN chief international correspondent Clarissa Ward is on the ground for us in Kabul tonight. Clarissa, what is the latest intelligence on how quickly Kabul may fall? It is very worrying right now.
The situation is definitely highly distressing for people who are living here. It is still calm in the capital of Kabul, but the prognosis is not good. Nobody expects necessarily for the Taliban to imminently enter the city, but the real fear at the moment, Jim, is that they could quite easily surround the city. They could isolate the city. We have seen now the Taliban continue this extraordinary offensive, gobbling up territory across the country, more than half of the provincial capitals, including most significantly Kandahar, the second largest city in the country. This is the spiritual heartland of the Taliban. This is the very place where they first declared their Islamic Emirate, and it was in fact the capital of their original Islamic Emirate. We have actually just spent a couple of days, Jim, with the Taliban in Ghazni province, that province also completely under the control of the Taliban. And we asked them, we really pushed them on the issue of whether they have any interest in negotiating with the government now that they have made so much ground in such a short space of time. And the Taliban governor we spoke to said simply, we will do whatever our leaders in Doha say, but it's not clear yet. That is not exactly reassuring news for the many Afghans who are desperate for some kind of a ceasefire agreement to be implemented or some kind of clarity as to what the future holds for the situation on the ground, Jim.
And give us a sense of the evacuations taking place right now.
Well, so they're not calling them evacuations, Jim. They're calling them withdrawal. U.S. Embassy personnel, 3,000 troops on the ground. I'm sure John Kirby will be able to speak to that much more incisively than I can. But what I can say is that it's being seen on the ground by ordinary Afghans as an evacuation, which is only contributing to the sense of panic as the sort of noose appears to be tightening around Kabul. Another thing that is really contributing to the sense of panic is the stunning silence from the Afghan government. We have not heard anything from President Ashraf Ghani. People are desperately looking for leadership. Rumors are swirling. Is he going to resign? What's the future? And with that stunning lack of clarity comes uncertainty. With uncertainty comes anxiety. With anxiety comes panic. And I think you get a sense of what the situation is. It's eerily quiet on the streets here in Kabul, Jim, but one official I spoke to earlier said, you hear that sound of silence? That's the sound of everybody in Kabul packing.
There are so many questions to answer right now. Clarissa Ward there in Kabul for us. Thank you so much. Let's get some answers right now with the Pentagon Press Secretary, Rear Admiral John Kirby. John, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. In the last week alone, as you know, the Taliban have captured 17 of Afghanistan's provincial capitals. Was the Biden administration caught off guard by this rapid advance? They are sweeping across the country very quickly, and it seems more quickly than you anticipated.
Certainly deeply concerning the speed with which the Taliban has been able to move, Jim, as well as the lack of resistance that they faced. But we had been watching Taliban advances even before the president made his decision to withdraw our troops from Afghanistan and to end the 20-year war for the United States there, was something we were watching closely, and we have been watching closely now for just the last few weeks.
Well, I want you to watch what President Biden said about this almost 1 month ago. I think it goes to this question. Let's watch.
The jury is still out. But the
So
likelihood
your
is going to be
reason for getting in
the
front of
Taliban
me
overrunning
is
everything
what?
and owning the whole country.
Are you making a right anytime soon?
That was just on July 8th.
I have no fucking idea what
Admiral
you're
Kirby,
doing.
I mean, if the president is saying that on July 8th, and we're seeing the Taliban sweeping across the country in the fashion that they're doing right now, that would seem to suggest that you were caught off guard and that the White House was caught off guard. Am I wrong?
Jim, what I would tell you is we've been watching this very closely in the intelligence community as well. We've certainly been monitoring this. It's not like we haven't been able to see it happen. What we
Well,
can't
seeing
do-
it happen and not anticipating it to the level and to the speed
Yeah.
that we're seeing right now are two different things.
Jim, what we couldn't predict was the lack of resistance that they were going to get from Afghan forces on the ground. And as you heard the president speak just a couple of days ago, what's really needed is for political and military leadership in Afghanistan. No outcome here has to be inevitable, Jim, but it has to be led. And Clarissa talked about leadership in her just comments with you just a couple of seconds ago. And so I think what has been disconcerting to see is that there hasn't been that will, that political leadership, the military leadership, and the ability to push back on the Taliban as they've advanced. Because, quite frankly, the Afghan forces have all the advantages that they need. They've got more troops, they've got more equipment, they've got an air force.
But John, and we heard you say that earlier today, John. Forgive me. Why have the Afghan security forces melted away in the fashion that they have after all of the money that the United States taxpayers have put into arming them and equipping them? As you said, they have an air force and so on. Are they using that air force? What has happened?
They are using the Air Force, Jim. In fact, they're flying more airstrikes than we are on a daily basis. But you can't, money can't buy will. Will has to be there. The ability to exert leadership and exude leadership on the field, that has to be there. And again, we just need to, I think the international community would like to see more will, more political and military leadership on the ground in Afghanistan so that there is no inevitable outcome here of a Taliban overrunning the whole country.
Well, let me ask you about this, because today you said you can't speak on whether the U.S. will meet the August 31st deadline to withdraw. President Biden has said he has no regrets, but is moving that withdrawal date at all possible at this point? Is this a hard no from the White House?
The president, the commander-in-chief, he said, being commander-in-chief means making difficult decisions, and he has decided that we are going to complete this drawdown by the end of the month, and we're on track to do that. Obviously, we are flowing more forces in temporarily to help our State Department colleagues draw down their presence in Kabul as well, and to help them with the processing of people applying for special immigrant visas. But the president made clear, too, when he approved the State Department reduction in force, that they would do that and have that complete by August 31st. That's what we're on track to do. I certainly can't speculate beyond that.
I understand you're saying you're on track to do that, but John, as you know, conditions can change on the ground, and if things deteriorate more quickly than you anticipated and the White House anticipated, surely you have to be open to some possibility, but you'll have to move that date. If you have assets on the ground there that have to be moved out, if there are key Afghan resources there, people there that we promised to get out, and you haven't gotten them out, you're just not going to leave them hanging in the wind, I imagine.
Well, that's going to be a call by the commander-in-chief, and he'll be advised by the Secretary of Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs if it comes to that. What I can tell you is that our job is to tee up options for the president to make sure that he has decision space. That's one of the reasons why, in addition to the 3,000 troops that we're going to be getting into the airport there in Kabul by the end of the weekend, we also have about another 3,500 to 4,000 that are going to be forward staged in Kuwait just in case they're needed. Again, for us here at the Pentagon, Jim, it's all about making sure that the president has options before him.
And today you said Kabul is not under imminent threat, quote, imminent threat.
Right.
But how can you say that when U.S. troops are evacuating Americans? Clarissa was saying it's not evacuating or moving Americans, and diplomats there are being instructed to destroy sensitive materials. Sounds like there's some threat there.
Certainly we're mindful of the potential threat here posed by the isolation that the Taliban appear to be trying to put in place around Kabul. And I also said today, Jim, that time is not a luxury that we have, and that's one of the reasons why we know we're flowing these forces in to help the State Department reduce their footprint. But there's no intention right now to close the embassy or to close all the diplomatic presence in Kabul. We still want to be able to have that in place. And as Clarissa reported just a few minutes ago, the situation in Kabul is calm right now. Yes, there's unease. Yes, there's uncertainty, and we understand that. But as we look at it from a military perspective, the city itself, as you and I speak, is not under an imminent threat of collapse at this point. But obviously, we're watching this closely. We wouldn't have made this decision to send in another 3,000 troops if we weren't mindful of the deteriorating security situation there.
And the State Department says the message to the Afghan people is one of, quote, enduring partnership, but Afghan civilians are terrified, and what they see as Americans leaving. Is that the message from the Biden administration? Is that appropriate to be sending that kind of message, considering what we're seeing unfolding right now? It doesn't look like a partnership. It looks like the partnership is over.
I wouldn't say that at all, Jim. Again, no outcome has to be inevitable here. We still want to see a secure, safe, prosperous Afghanistan, an Afghanistan that is led by Afghans who they have chosen to be their leaders, and that they have a choice in their future. We want to see that. We want to see the progress, the economic, political, social progress continue in Afghanistan, and we want to stay a partner. That's why here at the Defense Department, we're working on a bilateral relationship with Afghan forces after we're no longer on the ground there that can help them sustain their capabilities.
But John, they don't seem to have any capabilities right now. They're just melting away. So how can you have a partnership with Afghan security forces that are just going to be non-existent in a few months?
They do have capabilities, Jim. Like I said, they have a capable Air Force. They've got 300...
They're not holding any of these cities. They're not holding any of these areas in Afghanistan. If you don't mind. I mean, that's just the case right now.
No, Jim, I'm not arguing the disconcerting nature of the security situation on the ground. Not at all. As I said, you know, for all the support you can give, you can't buy somebody the will. You can't buy somebody the ability to exude leadership. And we're going to keep at this. We want a bilateral relationship with Afghanistan going forward. We're still committed to that. But the president also had to make some tough choices about the kinds of threats and challenges that this country's facing. And quite frankly, the terrorism threat has migrated in the region. It's not as heavy in Afghanistan. It's migrated to other parts of the world, like North Africa and the Levant area. And we have to focus on that too. Plus, there's larger nation-state threats and challenges that we need to be ready for and prepared for. The threat posed by Russia, the continuing aggressive actions by China in the South China Sea and in that part of the world. There's a lot of choices and priorities that have to be made too, and we're focused on that as well.
And John, do you acknowledge we could be in a situation where the United States marks the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attack with the Taliban in complete control of Afghanistan? What an awful, tragic way for this chapter in American history to end. What is going to happen to the women and girls of Afghanistan that we made all of these promises to over the last couple of decades? John, I know you've been in the heart of this for so long. I know you must struggle with this.
Nobody wants to see Afghanistan slide backward. Absolutely not. And it's in the international community's interest to make sure that the progress that has been made in Afghanistan can be sustained in Afghanistan. And that's why we still believe there's time and space for some sort of a political settlement here that will help preserve those gains. And if the Taliban, as they say they do, want international legitimacy and a hand in good governance, or governance that has the legitimacy of the international community, they would do well to get back to the table and try to help procure a negotiated political settlement that can preserve these gains so that the Afghan people can have a voice in their own future. And that's what we all want to see.
It certainly is. All right, Rear Admiral John Kirby, thanks for taking time with us. Lots more to talk about, and of course, we'd like to have you with us. So thanks. There's more breaking news next. A final decision just out from the CDC on booster COVID shots for some Americans.
Angie's List is now Angie. Whether you need help with routine maintenance or you're planning your dream renovation, Angie connects you with top local pros who can get the job done right. It's easy to see reviews, compare quotes, and instantly book hundreds of projects. Plus, when you book and pay through Angie, they'll cover your project up to the full purchase price, plus limited damage protection with their happiness guarantee. Check out Angie.com, and for more on the happiness guarantee, go to Angie.com/happiness-guarantee.htm.
It's summer, which means that millions of people are on the roads, heading to and from vacation. Seeing that check engine light come on can cause major anxiety. It's never a good feeling, especially if your car's no longer covered under a warranty. And if your car is out of warranty, that light can signal expensive car repairs. This is where CarShield comes in. CarShield picks up where your warranty left off. offering vehicle service plans that can cover expensive repairs, like your engine, transmission, and AC, which could save you thousands of dollars. Here's how it works. When your car needs repairs, use your favorite mechanic or dealership, and CarShield pays them directly. That's it. It's not just a protection plan, it's peace of mind. Get a free quote by calling 800-416-6522 or visit carshield.com. That's 800-416-6522 or carshield.com to get your free quote.
There's breaking news just coming in. A final decision on COVID vaccine booster shots for some people with compromised immune systems. CNN national correspondent Nadia Romero is in Jacksonville for us this evening. Nadia, what's the latest on your end?
Well, Jim, we know that the CDC voted unanimously to approve a third booster shot for people who are immunocompromised, and that's big. So the CDC following in line with the FDA approving this for those folks. We saw a research study that came out from Johns Hopkins University that showed that vaccinated immunocompromised people are 485 times more likely to be hospitalized or die from COVID-19 than other vaccinated people, right? So that is a huge statistic. This could be life-changing for them. That just happening today, Jim.
And we've just gotten some grim new numbers. Just how dire is the situation in Florida right now? It does seem like just things are heading in the wrong direction.
They absolutely are. Another record-breaking moment for the state of Florida, going in the wrong direction. 151,000 new cases of COVID-19 over the last week. So we know that more people are being hospitalized. That's the number that we're seeing all across the state of Florida. And it's not just older people like what we saw during the beginning of the pandemic, people who were in nursing homes, 65 and older. We're now seeing kids in children's hospitals, in NICUs even, who are being hospitalized with COVID-19 because of the Delta variant. It's spreading so quickly. It is so powerful, and kids are not immune to COVID-19. And that's a big concern, especially here in the state of Florida, because schools have already started this week. Some schools will begin next week, and they're concerned about the safety of the children, the educators, and the administrators as well. Jim?
Absolutely. And there's also breaking news in the fight between the White House and Governor DeSantis. What are you learning about that?
We are watching a political boxing match, Jim. I mean, the first punch was landed by Governor Ron DeSantis, who told school districts that you cannot have a mask mandate. He says that wearing a mask should be left up to parents. And he said that districts who defied those orders would then see their funding stripped. And if you were a superintendent and you push forward with the mask mandate, he would take away your salary. Well, just moments ago, the U.S. Department of Education sending letters to Governor Ron DeSantis here in Florida, to Texas Governor Abbott, and to Florida superintendents saying, no, they're swinging back in a counterattack against DeSantis, telling him that you don't have the authority to do that. And if you try, we will use our federal money to supplement those school districts. We'll make sure that they have their salaries and that they'll have all the funding that they need. And remember, this is an official letter from the U.S. government, but in bold print, in that letter to Florida superintendents, it says the U.S. Department of Education stands with you. They stand with science, they stand with mask mandates, or whatever the school districts believe will keep the students safe. And so that is the latest in this political boxing match, this back and forth, and we're still awaiting to hear what the response will be from Governor Ron DeSantis. Jim?
All right, we're waiting as well. CNN's Nadia Romero, thanks so much. We want to bring in CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Sanjay, the CDC director, just moments ago gave the final go-ahead for third vaccine doses for certain immunocompromised people. That is such a big deal. Who does this apply to exactly? Is it a big group?
It's probably about 3% of the population, Jim. Maybe 7 to 9 million people. And we can put the list up of people who sort of fall into this group of immunocompromised, people who've had organ transplants. They take medications to suppress their immune system. It's a busy screen of things there. Most people who are on these medications that weaken their immune system know this. If it's not clear, you can find this information at CDC's website, our website as well. But the point is, Jim, people who have weakened immune systems, if you give them a vaccine, they may not generate the same amount of antibodies, the same amount of protection as people who have a regular immune system, healthy immune system. So that's who they're really targeting here. People who have had autoimmune diseases take medications for that. People who have had recent chemotherapy for cancer. If you're not sure about it, you can talk to your doctor. And one of the things that struck me today, Jim, it's sort of an honor system. There's not going to be a prescription for this third dose. It's going to be self-attestation to the pharmacist. You don't have to show an antibody level or something like that. So I think it's going to be a discussion, but people who are concerned about it are probably going to be able to get that third shot.
That's good news. And how did advisors determine who needs these additional doses first? How did that process work?
I think there's two main things. And the primary thing is, because immunity is so complicated, they wanted to see people who are vaccinated, is there a population of people who are getting severely ill? And when they started to look at that data, they found that it was the immunocompromised who were most likely to develop an infection, a post-vaccination infection, and get sick enough to actually end up in the hospital. So you can see of all the breakthrough infections that ended up requiring hospitalization, 40 to 44% of them were in immunocompromised people. The second part of it was looking at the just overall effectiveness of the vaccine. And I could show you this one graph, Jim. This was in the New England Journal of Medicine earlier this week, but basically showed people who had some response. That's going to be the left red bar there. You can see they generate some response after the first two shots. Not enough, but when they got that third shot, these were responders to that third shot and had significant improvement in their overall antibody levels. Jim, there may still be people who just have no response, right? They didn't respond, they didn't develop antibodies after the first two shots, and they may still not, even after the third shot. And again, we don't know for certain who those people are, but they should be talking to their doctors about whether or not the third shot still makes sense for them.
And this is an interesting question, Sanjay. CDC data shows more than 1 million people have already received unauthorized booster doses ahead of this FDA decision. Is that problematic? What do you make of that? I mean, you do hear rumblings of people saying, I'm just going to go and get another booster shot on my own.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten tons of tweets about this and people emailing me. Here's what I'd say. I don't think it's dangerous. I think the side effects that they've seen in some of these trials with people who got third shots, side effects are similar to what you got with the first two shots. So I don't think it's dangerous. We know that there's about half the country that needs to get the first shot still. So while the third shots, there's people who are doing that, may not be dangerous for them. The real focus needs to be on protecting people who need to be protected and getting the unvaccinated vaccinated in the first place.
Yeah, let's get those folks vaccinated. Absolutely. All right, Sanjay Gupta, thank you so much, as always.
Have a good weekend, Jim.
You too. Up next, a new warning about the potential for violence in the U.S. within the next few weeks. You're in the situation.
Propaganda.
This podcast is supported by First Republic Bank. Now, more than ever, First Republic's priority is serving their clients and communities. Their personalized banking solutions go deeper than a transaction. For over 30 years, First Republic has striven to leave a positive impact on the communities that they serve. From presenting grants to nonprofits in need of going the extra mile, to connecting individuals experiencing hardship with fair loans, the bank is focused on doing the right thing. No matter what your financial goals are, your dedicated First Republic banker will be there to guide you every step of the way. Visit firstrepublic.com today to learn more. That's firstrepublic.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender. It's summer, which means that millions of people are on the roads, heading to and from vacation. Seeing that check engine light come on can cause major anxiety. It's never a good feeling, especially if your car's no longer covered under a warranty. And if your car is out of warranty, that light can signal expensive car repairs. This is where CarShield comes in. CarShield picks up where your warranty left off, offering vehicle service plans that can cover expensive repairs, like your engine, transmission, and AC, which could save you thousands of dollars. Here's how it works. When your car needs repairs, use your favorite mechanic or dealership, and CarShield pays them directly. That's it. It's not just a protection plan, it's peace of mind. Get a free quote by calling 800-416-6522 or visit carshield.com. That's 800-416-6522 or carshield.com to get your free quote.
With the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks less than a month away, there's a new warning tonight about the threat of violence. CNN senior national security correspondent Alex Marquardt is working the story for us. Alex, what are you learning about this new warning?
Well, Jim, this is a very disturbing bulletin from DHS. And what DHS usually does in these situations is essentially put out these bulletins to tell the American public the threats that they're watching out for, the terrorist threats. And they break down the types of terrorists into two potential categories. Those who are inspired from groups abroad, like Al-Qaeda, and those that have more of a domestic focus, that are fueled by grievances, that are anti-government or white extremists, for example. In that first group, they say that with the fast approaching anniversary of 9/11, the 20th anniversary, that Al-Qaeda could be looking to inspire potential attackers in the country. They note that Al-Qaeda has just put out their English language magazine, also called Inspired, for the first time in 4 years. And in that second category, they say that the health restrictions that have been imposed because of COVID, that could also fuel people to carry out some sort of attack. Again, these are people who are motivated by racial grievances. These are people who might have grievances with the government. And another target, they say, could be religious institutions. I want to read you part of that bulletin from DHS, which says, the reopening of institutions, including schools, as well as several dates of religious significance over the next few months, could also provide increased targets of opportunity for violence, though there are currently no credible or imminent threats identified to those locations. So, Jim, that's important. There are no known threats right now. Another thing that we have to talk about is the head of intelligence at DHS told our colleague Geneva Sands exclusively that a lot of the chatter that they are seeing in online forums is just like the chatter that they saw in the lead up to January 6th. It is not just, this is not just chatter that could lead to violence, but there has been an uptick in this kind of chatter. So it's doubly worrying. And there is a thread that runs through all of this chatter. It is the big lie, this perception, this belief, misguided, that Donald Trump had the election stolen from him last year.
Right, and there was all of this goofiness that he was going to be reinstated today. He is not being reinstated today, but it's a part of what's out there. Alex Marquardt, stand by. We want to bring in on this discussion the former director of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center, Bill Evanina, is also with us. Bill, you're such a respected expert in this area, so thanks for joining us. This new terrorism bulletin that Alex was just talking about outlines a huge range of possible threats. But when you look at this, what concerns you most this evening looking at this morning?
Well, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me. I think there's a multifaceted aspect to these threats. I think DHS and FBI are doing the right thing by making the public aware of what they're seeing on the online forums. But as Alex pointed out, there's two different angles here, the foreign and domestic. I think we also have to be concerned with what Russia and China can do, primarily Russia, on online forums to stoke the arguments of both sides. We saw the Russian intelligence services do that in both of the last two election cycles, as well as during George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and the COVID and vaccines. So the Russian intelligence services can play a big role in what happens between now and September 11th.
And this comes as the Homeland Security Intelligence Chief says online calls for violence now are very similar to what they saw in the lead up to what happened on January 6th, the deadly insurrection. How do intelligence officials avoid repeating the same mistakes? Because we have heard anecdotes about signs that were missed.
It's very difficult, and my hat's being tipped here to all the members of law enforcement and intelligence community to do their best with the authorities they have to watch into the inner circles of chat rooms, but they can't watch online conversations from person to person. So they'll identify that, as well as look at external forces. What is Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Russian intelligence services? How are they manipulating and amplifying domestic voices here in this argument? They're very good at taking both sides of the argument and inflaming those arguments so there's a potential for violence in the middle.
And Alex, you also have new reporting on intelligence reports that show that Russia is trying to capitalize on this moment of American division. I guess it's new information, it's new reporting, but it seems like the old game. It's a part of the Russians.
That's exactly right. It's exactly what Bill was talking about. It is Russia taking two sides of different issues and simply trying to divide us. The point is the chaos. The point is to undermine American democracy. So it is not the strategy that has changed. It is the tactics that have changed. It is the subjects that have arisen. January 6th, COVID, the vaccines, mask mandates, things like that. New things for the Russians to seize on and amplify that are already in our conversation. And we know that this has been noticed by the intelligence services, who are obviously analyzing and watching the Russians very carefully. And we know that it has concerned the administration so greatly and the intelligence community so greatly that this has been briefed to the president himself. And in fact, he made a reference to this in a speech to the intelligence community very recently. Let's take a quick listen to that.
Hurry up!
We don't have the sound of that.
Well, essentially,
summarize it.
what he says is that it is a violation of our sovereignty, and he pointed to the fact that the Russians are not just doing this on a general basis, but they are also going after the elections in 2022. And of course, Jim, this comes on the heels not too long after that summit between the two presidents back in June, in which President Biden essentially told President Putin to knock it off. Clearly not doing that.
He is not knocking it off, Bill. And you were in charge of briefing presidential candidates on threats to the 2020 election. What would you say to candidates now about what the Russians are up to? They won't cut it out.
Yeah, good point. And I think we have to be as transparent as possible at all angles. And I would say the intelligence community and law enforcement is going to continue to enhance the effectiveness of those transparencies, provide all the information that's vital to each candidate to see what that influence looks like going through their campaigns, for those inside the campaigns, and also the whole system where they're back home in their business entities and what the social media looks like against them as well as against their